Want to dive face first into combat instead of running around looking for openings? When asked, unstoppable force or immovable object, is your answer
¿Por qué no los dos?
If this sounds like you, then Lance might just be your weapon. I'm veryDave, and by the end of this video, you'll have the confidence and ability to play and enjoy Lance in Monster Hunter World. We'll look at what kind of weapon Lance is, we'll cover its strengths, then go through a super simple Lance starter kit to get you going. After that, we'll cover some key aspects in greater detail. Movement, blocks and counters, offense, and then some more advanced tips. So, why play Lance? What makes it unique? Let's talk about some Lance strengths. If you like playing hyper-aggressive, Lance is the most aggressive weapon in the game, with nearly no downtime because running away and waiting for openings is for other people. Counters. Lance has an answer for nearly all situations, whether multi-hits, huge hitboxes, or overexcitable monsters running around like excited toddlers. Claw Counter from the Iceborne expansion grants you unbeatable softening capability without needing to wait for the special clutch stagger. You have no bad matchups, and Lance provides a great way to learn monster moves more safely than other weapons, since if you really need to or feel unsure, you can usually hunker down behind your shield and watch what unfolds. The Lance can also trivialize some usually hard to avoid and dangerous monster attacks, like those of Kirin, Diablos, Raging Brachy, Tigrex, and more. In fact, a monster being super aggressive is to our benefit playing Lance. Uniquely capable of standing and duking it out with monsters without needing to move out of the way, with its super low commits, you can find openings nearly anywhere in a fight with Lance. Next, before getting into anything super complex or in-depth, here's a very basic, super simplified guide that will get you off the ground and let you just dive into hunts with Lance. The core tenet of Lance is always be poking. Try to avoid sheathing if you could, instead be attacking the monster. 3 key questions you can repeatedly ask yourself are when, how, and where to poke. When to poke. To answer this, try poking the monster. Did you get hit? If so, it was not, after all, time to poke. Were you out of range? Then guard dash and leaping thrust in. If you didn't get hit, it was time to poke. Now, how to poke? We know when. How should we do this? To keep it simple for now, you will generally either mid-thrust or high-thrust up to 3 times in a row, then either dash step your dodge, a simple action that lets you micro-adjust your position, and continue how you please afterwards. There's counter thrust, a direct continuation of your assault that can also transition into other moves, more on that later. And there's guard dash, a very fast and safe way to block and move at the same time, or even chase the monster with a leaping thrust. And what about where? Usually, the face of the monster is a good bet, but don't be shy to target other parts, especially if you're looking to break them. And that's enough to get you started. There's plenty more to learn, but with that very basic toolkit, you should find yourself plenty capable of getting into the swing of things. So go off and get hunting, if you like, or hop into the training room to warm up. Next up, let's look at one of the most important parts of Lance in a bit more detail: movement. Don't be fooled by sluggish first impressions. Lance can move, and very well. The slow walk and sheath needn't worry you. You'll sheath less than most weapons, and walking isn't your primary form of transport. Your movement goals are simple: stick to the monster, and position to hit the monster where you want, typically in its face. With that in mind, let's look at each of Lance's movement tools. Walking. You won't use it that much, but don't be afraid to do so, especially when you don't want to burn stamina. Dash steps, your dodges. Forward steps aren't amazing, with low iframes and travel compared to other dodges, while also costing you heavily in stamina and freezing your stamina regen. However, back hops, these are superb when used in the right places. When you use a back hop and hold backwards shortly after anything else, you can alternately do a large back hop, traveling much further and faster. look at how much ground we can cover with a series of back hops. If you add Evade Extender 3, the large back hop really starts to send you flying. Guard Dash is incredible. Move while blocking and without changing which way you're facing if you don't want to. Movement, stamina, offense, defense, all in one. It's stamina efficient, covers more distance than your standard dash step, and can be used together with dash steps, especially large back hops, for fast and safe movement. You can maintain your facing while moving in another direction, for example, face forwards while moving backwards. Great for positioning. You can also use it to jump off of a ledge and be guarding the whole time in the air, and you can go into a dash attack in any direction from it. It has instant startup and is lightning quick to use. It also has some other advantages for use in offense and defense we'll talk about when covering blocks and counters. One thing to keep in mind is that to maintain your facing, you're best off using Guard Dash not too long after another move. If you use it from neutral, which is to say, not in a combo, and you don't hold L2 after R2, you'll turn to face the direction you move in, which could leave you vulnerable. Between your Guard Dash and your dash steps, which you can alternate so long as you have stamina while not changing which way your hunter is looking, it's worth practicing. Leaping Thrust is another useful movement tool that you can do from a Guard Dash or from a Power Guard. It is incredibly effective movement and extremely stamina efficient. Look how the stamina barely drops while we move, as it quickly begins to regenerate. Compare that with how dash steps gobble up your stamina and freeze stamina regeneration when chaining them, not to mention how much slower and more dangerous it is. Dash attack. The Lance Charge. It has a slow startup, but great coverage over longer distances. Additionally, it can even automatically hop up small ledges and other obstacles, and even run up runnable walls. You can also very quickly cancel dash attack with a block, if things look dicey. It's also great fun for running down a fleeing monster, especially if it's limping. If you need to adjust where you're going, you can do a 180-degree turn with backwards and X, or a sidestep with left or right and X. Just watch out you don't use it at yellow sharpness, or run into a wall with it, as you'll bounce and become super vulnerable. And try not to use this into teammates. It's a strong enough flinch that it needs more than one level of flinch free, and that can get them carted or just make you generally unpopular. Combat. While the basic toolkit earlier will let you get out and get hunting, let's take a bit of a closer look at the tools and their uses in a fight. And we'll start with your blocks and your counters. These are what you use when you're not actively poking the monster for some reason. Your standard guard. We've got a good few, so let's start at the most basic, the humble standard guard. Hold up your shield, and instead of taking health damage, take stamina and sometimes a small amount of health damage when hit. It has a fast startup and can be used while sheathed to instantly guard and unsheath at the same time. Great for fight-starred roars, amongst other things. Do try and not stand still while using it though, as that freezes your stamina regeneration, and without stamina, you're not going to be able to block, or really do much anything else. Guard Dash. Our friend from before, Guard Dash is not only an excellent movement tool, it's also more knockback resistant than your regular guard, and can be used after many other moves to very quickly go to guarding again. Especially useful if a monster's attack misses you when you do a counter thrust and it's going to follow up. Guard Dash is one of the most powerful tools in your kit. Get comfortable with it. And speaking of counter thrust or cancel thrust, go into a counter stance for a few seconds, then release the block and counter. It's great for most single hitting attacks, allows you to ignore an attack and hit back in one smooth movement, additionally granting you a short duration of hyper armor after blocking something with it. That's not all it can do though. You can switch to either Power Guard or Claw Counter from a counter thrust before the attack fires with X or L2 respectively. An important quirk of counter thrust is that if you catch an attack with it, you can chain this counter into itself. Fun. If a monster misses you when you do this and you need to immediately block again, instead, use a guard dash. Power Guard. Power Guard is accessed either, as mentioned, from a counter thrust, or by pressing X, your bottom face button, during a guard knockback. A little more complicated, Power Guard has a variety of uses. Unlike your other guards, which cover a 220-degree angle, Power Guard will block attacks from all directions, no matter where you're facing, even from directly behind. It is also exceptionally stable and not easily knocked back when guarding. It also works almost the opposite to your other guards in terms of stamina, in that while holding it and not being hit, it drains constantly. But the moment you're hit, instead of losing stamina, it freezes that drain for a few moments. Over time, you'll get a feel for when it'll save your stamina bar and timing it. Another big strength of Power Guard is that in addition to having a strong counterattack, you can direct that counterattack in any direction you please, making aiming for a weak spot or hitting a monster hard as it passes harmlessly through your guard much easier. All that strength isn't free though. It comes at the cost of taking increased chip damage compared to all your other blocks. In addition to the counterattack, you can also exit your Power Guard directly into a dash attack or a leaping thrust. Your leaping thrust, like the counter, can be in any direction, while the dash attack can only go where you were facing. And now, Claw Counter. New to Lance with Iceborne, the Claw Counter is accessed primarily by pressing L2 from a counter thrust. A phenomenally strong move that makes Lance the weapon with the easiest time tenderizing monsters and even tenderizing multiple monster parts in the game. It's a counter stance that when a monster hits it, you bounce back and zipline into an automatic clutch claw lash to usually the part of the monster that hits you. But that's not even the best bit. From the time you begin the bounce back and for a couple of seconds after attaching to the monster, you are immune to knockbacks, just like if you were wearing the Rocksteady mantle. It's active long enough that you can perform your tenderizing attack and soften the part, guaranteed, unless you die, or if you get hit with a pin or a grab, just like Rocksteady. There are times when using this can get you killed, but especially once you've augmented health augment on your weapon at endgame, your tenderizing attack itself does such good damage, you'll lifesteal most of what you usually lose right back. And last but not least, or kind of least, Guard Shot. A strong block in terms of knockback resistance, but really only used for firing your slinger or using your clutch claw directly. Using it to access claw counter is less favorable than starting from counter thrust most of the time. Also, a quick note, when you're pressing your right analog stick in order to access your clutch claw, don't do it too quickly, or you might end up getting into a claw counter stance instead. Alright, now we've covered our blocks and counters, let's take a look at what attacks are useful in different situations. When the monster is not down, simply hit it with whatever you can hit it with. Mostly this will be mid thrusts and high thrusts, mixed in with plenty of counter thrusts and leaping thrusts when you need to close distance. Speaking of closing distance, if you were using dash attack, if you go slightly past the monster and then use a reverse attack, not only do you get great damage and reorient to face the other way, you also immediately can combo into more thrusts. Overall though, your main concern is to be constantly attacking. With Lance, uptime is king. When the monster is down, typically you'll want to do 3 thrusts, mid or high, whatever hits again. However, if both will hit, high is preferable, does slightly more damage. And if time allows following that, a dash attack immediately cancelled into finishing thrust. Mounting. Lance can very easily begin a mount compared to even an insect glaive, as you can do a jumping attack out of your dash attack by pressing forward and X to get into the air, and then triangle will let you attack in any direction from the air. Head hits will usually build a mount fastest. Sleep wake-ups. So, while you're in a group, if you've got someone like a greatsword user or a hammer user, usually let them do the honors, they'll do more damage. But when you're solo or you're grouped with, say, sword and shield or dual blade users, your best wake-up, at least at endgame, is not a barrel bomb hit, but your reverse attack, which is your hardest hitting single strike. To do it simply begin a dash attack away from the monster's head and immediately do your backwards and triangle input. Now for putting it all together and some more niche info. As for general combat flow, we've already covered all the essentials. When it comes to actual hunts, however, try and focus on simply being as aggressive as you can be. Don't worry too much about getting hit. If you do, simply take a mental note to swap a poke for something else next time. Other than that, while we have focused on hyper-aggression as a playstyle, taking the odd pause here or there can work out too. Now, what about when to block and when to dodge? Rarely iframe things as a general rule. Your iframes and your dodge travel distances they're bad. But if you need to do it, you need to do it. Another reason to choose blocks and counters over evasion is that you'll be wanting to activate offensive guard once you have the skill, with last second blocks to get its big old damage buff. On the other hand, when you're using an evasion mantle, your iframes are much more generous and the damage buff from doing an evade is very high at 30%. So while that's active, things are a bit different. It can be fun to weave between blocks and dodges when your evasion mantle is active in order to keep both buffs active, which results in a huge boost to your damage. Now, guard up. I'm not going to talk about skills too much in this video because that's a whole other video's worth of talk. But guard up in particular, there are plenty of misconceptions about this skill. Guard up does not make your block stronger. It simply toggles a hidden switch that lets you block moves that are invisibly tagged as requiring it. Put simply, monsters have 3 categories regarding guarding. Blockable attacks, blockable with guard up, and completely unblockable. For convenience, it's often easiest to simply have it on your build, either through the deco or earlier on through an Uragan 2-piece set bonus. Some monsters have no attacks that require it at all, like Nergigante, while others benefit hugely from having it, like Valhazak or Velkhana, whose breath attacks all require it to block them. You may have heard that Power Guard has Guard Up built in after you hold for a few seconds. This is true, but it's nearly useless, as it's far too slow to be practical, and anything that slow you could have sheathed and Superman dived anyway. A quick note on food. In terms of useful effects on your food for Lance, 4 Vigor type, the middle beigey colored foods, give you Feline Black Belt as a skill, which is equivalent to 2 levels of Constitution, or 20% less stamina usage on instant usage, which is pretty much everything you do aside from Power Guard and Dash Attack. It even reduces stamina used from blocking on top of the reductions from the Guard skill itself. It's an exceptionally good food skill to have on heavy stamina damage fights like Fatalis. There's also a kind of focus mode for Lance. If you're blocking and you hold L2 in addition to R2, your hunter will start facing where your camera faces even while moving, dash stepping or guard dashing, even if you're from neutral and not in a combo. It's basically a bit like an aiming aspect of focus mode for Monster Hunter Wilds. It's most useful when trying to use a guard dash backwards or sideways from neutral. However, beware pressing L2 before R2 or releasing R2 before L2, as both will result in you going into an unexpected guard shot stance. This is a result of the addition of guard shot with Iceborne. In the base game, there was nothing else in L2, making it much easier to use. In conclusion, there you have it. You've now got the key tools all under your belt. It's now just a case of getting comfortable with them. If you're feeling overwhelmed, try focusing on just 1 or 2 at a time and integrate them into your play bit by bit as you get your muscle memory and matchup knowledge. If you'd like videos on specific Lance matchups or have any other video requests, pop them in the comments and or come on over to my streams on Twitch or YouTube and say hello. You're also welcome to join the Discord. Once you've liked the video and subscribed to the channel to help us out in the algorithm, maybe throw a comment too, go out and do some hunting.